Hey Tom, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I hate my voice.
What?
I hate my voice. I'm trying to talk calm and this and that, but I come off and going, "Hey Tom, how the hell are you?" Anyways, whatever.
Your
Anyways, again,
voice is
thanks for being
fine.
on.
Your voice is fine,
I
man.
know, but it's what do you want? It's your nasal cavity is so big that it resonates.
Hmm.
I don't hear it the same way as you hear it. I know you hear my tones are dulcet tones and beautiful voice and all that, but I don't hear it that way.
Yeah, I mean my own voice, it has a higher pitch sometimes, and it gets on my nerves. But I
Don't worry
don't.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, we got okay, guys. Thanks people for being on. Von Deacon, Nathaniel Robinson, James Brazil, William McGinnis. I hope you're having a Guinness, William. Okay, Tom. You know what?
What?
Let's do the question thing, okay?
Oh, okay.
So you're Tom Russell, and you co-founded Hollandspiele. Now, why Hollandspiele?
The name? Why the
Yeah,
name?
it's just the weirdest thing ever. Why would you call your company Hollandspiele?
Okay. Well, it starts with Mary and I wanted to get into publishing pretty early on when I got into the hobby. And at that time, we were looking at more doing kind of Euro games because I thought I'd be a Euro game designer. And Mary's maiden name is Holland. So we thought we called it Hollandspiel after her. People would think we were over in Europe, and that was amusing to us. And then we stopped. I kept seeing the comments.
Yeah, I'm purposely doing that because,
Uh,
anyways, I'm going to go into that later.
yeah, but when we decided to start a company that did war games, we just kept the name, and it worked out. So that's basically it.
Yeah, because it did confuse me when I first bought one of your games. I forget which one I bought. I think I bought Table Battles,
Mm.
and I was I thought I was going to get like reamed in shipping costs because it comes from Europe, and I thought, my God, it's going to kill me. And no, you're from the States.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you know what?
What?
Dinosaurs. Let's go right into dinosaurs.
Right, the dinosaurs.
Okay,
Okay.
so hold on. What was my question for dinosaurs? Well, you know what? I don't think I have to have a question for dinosaurs, but personally, I think it's great that you're doing this dinosaur thing. I don't know if it's because I listen to your podcast, you and Mary, and it's a fun thing. Like I feel like I'm your neighbor or something, and I'm coming over, and we're listening to the Mary and Tom show. So Will Alambre is going to be doing the art. Was that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes,
I
he
think
did the. He did the. Hang on, I'm being attacked. Monster, leave the chair alone. Yeah. The art for Dinosaur Tale Battles is by Will Alhambra, who we also worked with for Escape from Hades, Rivet, absolutely Aces, a little freebie game from a couple years back.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I think he's great for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is coming out when?
So that is going to be hex number 50. So we've released number 47. We have 48 and 49 to come, and then 50. So we're looking at probably April or May. It really just depends on how soon we get the other games out.
Oh, and you just said something that this was a mystery to me all the time. Your hex number, hex 44. That's just like your 44th game or your 47th game. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
And so you called it hex because?
Because we put the little number in a hexagon to let people know that we're a working company. But it's on the spine of it. It's kind of like, are you familiar with an American DVD manufacturer called Criterion Collection?
Criterion, yes.
So they have the spine numbers. They have the number for each one. And there are some people where they'll look at it and they'll be like, oh, I don't have number 5 or I don't have number 10. I'm missing one. So then they look and find out what that is. And
I
that's
see.
kind
I
of
see.
what we're borrowing from. Because we don't have many people who buy all our stuff because our games are so eclectic.
Yeah,
We have so many
absolutely.
different kinds of games. But there are some, and they'll be like, okay, I need to fill these gaps. I need to get this complete set of Hollandspiele games.
Yes, and you said the Criterion Collection. Okay, let's go on a little bit of a tangent. What kind of you buy Criterion DVDs?
Yeah.
Like what? What do you watch? I'm curious.
What do I watch? We watch all sorts of things. I mean, I started. Mary and I first started kind of getting to know each other because we both had a common love of film, and so we have all. So I mean, I'm drawing a blank right now, but like I'm looking over here.
You got Japanese. You got Kurosawas.
Oh yeah, we got several Kurosawa movies box sets, some Fassbinder, Jacques Demy. There's Truffaut's Antoine Donnell series, all sorts of things. We just got, but it didn't fit on my DVD shelf.
Gojira.
The Godzilla one. Oh,
Yeah.
This is great. I love this.
Yeah.
I love all the art in it. I love the old Godzilla movies. And we bought so I used to buy a lot of Criterions. We kind of stopped doing that until they started doing the sales at Barnes and Noble. Every like once a year or twice a year, they have a sale where they're like, Mary's telling me twice a year, where there's so much % off, and so we get some DVDs that way, some Criterions.
Yeah, because they are expensive. I mean, for me, they're really expensive, man.
I can imagine they're probably more expensive in Canada. You're in Canada.
Yeah,
right?
like I mean, if I wanted to buy like that Kurosawa set,
Mm-hmm.
I think 10 movies or something like that, or I think it was like $400-500 if I'm not mistaken.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But I might be mistaken though.
The Godzilla set wasn't cheap either, but we got it like whatever percentage off.
50% off.
50% off, Mary.
50%. Yeah.
50% off. We're gonna pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, you know what? Let's. I have a question here by Molly Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the screen. Anthony and Cleopatra and Marcus Aurelius were great ancient games. Any plans to do a game on the fall of Rome, Tom?
Well, yeah. You got fuzzy there.
Yeah. As soon as it's my shiny head.
Oh, okay. So yes. In fact, we have a game coming out. I think just after Dinosaur Table Battles will be Stilicho, Last of the Romans. That's a sequel to Wars of Marcus Aurelius, set at the Fall of Rome. There's also, I have an idea I've been toying with for a while to do a multiplayer asymmetric game about the Fall of Rome, from a perspective of people within the empire and how those tensions contributed to the fall of Rome, rather than the common barbarians at the gates
Right.
narrative. I haven't done that yet. I don't know when I'll get to it, but it's on my I might do that someday list. And that list keeps getting longer, but I do games full time, so I mean, eventually I'll probably get to it.
Well, here's a good segue question to Molly. Is how many games do you have going at the same time, Tom?
That I'm designing at the same time?
Yeah,
I don't know, it varies. It can be like 6 to 12 at a time, kind of switching off as I'm working on one thing and then another. And then a lot of how I work has to do with, I do the research, I really steep myself in the period, get an understanding of it, and I just wait for my subconscious to kind of figure out what it's going to be and give me a clear picture of the game, and then I work on it. So like Westphalia, which came out at the end of the last year, in one form or another, I've been working on that game for like 10 years.
Really, eh?
Yeah. Now, the actual nitty-gritty, down-to-brass-tacks design work is more like 2 to 3 years. But the research started 10 years ago. And there's other games where, there's a game that we did for the holiday game this year was Toledo War, and I did that like in a weekend. So, right. I mean, it really varies depending on what I want the game to be, the size of the game, and how familiar I am with the period to begin with. I have kind of a base understanding, for example, of the medieval period. So it doesn't take me a lot to do a medieval game. I have to do some additional research, but I'm not, relearning the wheel. There's a reason I haven't done any Napoleonic game yet, because I really would need to steep myself in that period. And I think you really can't do a good Napoleonic game if you're only consulting English language sources.
No.
And I don't know any other languages. So, and I'm terrible at learning them. I tried learning them in school, and I don't have the capacity to really learn another language, no matter how hard I tried. So Napoleon isn't something I'm probably going to do anytime soon, because I don't have that foundational grounding to let me be successful with and let me work fairly quickly on it.
And it's funny, your process of reading and letting it stew in your head type thing. It's the same thing for me in music, man. I'll have an idea, it'll stew, and it'll take me 5 years to write that one idea. And because I'm tired of that idea, I'm not going to throw it away. I'll write something else in 2 minutes, and like your game that you did in a weekend. So I understand what you're doing. Let me see here. Oh, we got Chronos saying this. Napoleonic games are the worst. They nitpick at everything. Chronos, you're talking about like people who play the games. If they don't get the,
they're the worst. Wow.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I was going to ask you, when you're going to do a Battle of the Bulge game.
I'm probably not going. It's just I haven't done any kind of World War II stuff, and I don't know if I will. I just don't know how much I have to contribute to that or say about that.
Right.
But at the same time, I always said I was never going to do a Gettysburg game. I ended up doing a Gettysburg Cable Bales expansion. So, I don't know. Who knows the future? We try to be flexible, Yeah. We try to be open to whatever comes up and looks like it's going to work well. I will say what Krotos there said about Napoleonic gamers. There are certain subjects that attract people who are very detail-oriented,
yes,
and very opinionated. And one reason why when I started doing game design, I started with very obscure topics, is because I didn't want to have people going over it with a fine-tooth comb to find all the things that, I thought I got wrong, or thought might be right, that what were wrong and whatnot. But even obscure topics, my very first game was on the Battle of the Alma. I actually redesigned it, published like a new game of it last year. Mary and I did. But I chose that because, like, who really is a detail nut about the Alma? If I get something wrong, I can kind of get away with it, right? I couldn't know. People were looking at it. And the thing is, the stuff they kept saying that I had wrong was stuff that was right. That is actually right. Because people know what they think they know.
Right.
But they might not actually know the stuff. Like, a big part of the Battle of the Alma is that the Manet rifles outranged the Russian artillery. And there are people who were complaining, like, the Russian artillery should be able to outrange this rifle. I was like, that's not what happened. That's not factual. But people tend to latch on to popular ideas about things. But yeah, there's some that are, people are more detail oriented, and they're going to be a little nitpicky. Nothing wrong with that. They're passionate about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's one reason why I prefer kind of broad games that aren't super detailed, but are broader in scope, or less granular. Because the other thing is that simple models are usually more useful than super complex ones.
I know, and you know what? I think the older I'm getting, Tom, I don't want to play complex games no more. I don't want to, I want to play I want to play Ribbit, man. That's what I want to play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember when we met at WBC last year, and I remember there was some game that you were playing the night before, and you were up like all night stuck with this game. I remember you being very tired the next day.
I think that was with Mark Herman and the Player's Aid.
Yeah.
And I think we played the expansion to, oh my God, what's the name of the game? The Vietnam game.
Fire in the Lake.
Fire in the Lake, yeah. And first of all, I didn't know. I had never played a coin game before. Now I'm playing with Mark Herman. He's my partner. So basically I'm waiting for him to give me tips. But he's the kind of partner that he wants you to make the mistake.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't want to make a mistake. But anyways.
But but some games they're longer, more complicated, and they're harder to get through digest. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Here,
I got a question here from Rob German. Any plans for Hollandspiele to release more abstract strategy games?
There aren't plans in the immediate future. It might happen. We try to be flexible and up to these things, We've done kind of two, which are Ribbit and Boom and Zoom. You might say Meltwater is more like an abstract game than it is like other games, but we're not actively seeking it out, but we're not actively saying, oh no, we don't want that either. I mean, right now we're not really signing anything because our pipeline is so stuffed full of games we gotta get out.
Right.
But yeah, that's my answer.
And look at that, Rob German, and this guy over here, his name is Jan Heinemann from Germany. So I had to put that question. And so he says, Tom, do you understand yourself as historian when it comes to designing historical themed games? I think there was something lost in translation there.
I don't think of myself as a historian. I think of myself as a game designer. Not my object is to engage with the history and have a point of view on the history and express that through the mechanics and the model. But I wouldn't call myself a historian because I don't have the expertise and discipline of a historian that's developed by going through the formal education in that field. So I think a lot of war game designers especially are kind of armchair historians or amateur historians, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wouldn't be comfortable calling myself a historian. I'm definitely someone who makes games for a living that try to engage with history and use that to say something about the history or about our own time as reflected in that history.
Tom, I just, before I forget, your table battles game, I love them. You could do a Battle of the Bulge table battle.
I could. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I basically got to do like 2 table battle things a year. Now this year, instead of doing 2 expansions, I'm doing the expansion and the dinosaur table battles game. But eventually we'll probably get to World War I, World War II stuff. Just haven't gotten to that yet.
I forgot. Did you tell me when the dinosaurs coming out for table battle?
Yeah, so it should be April or May. It just depends on when the next couple games come out.
Okay. So, when a new designer comes up to you, Tom, and you accept the game, how much input do you have? Like, how much of your idea how much are you gonna screw this guy up by putting your idea in? That's what I'm trying to say.
Hopefully 0%, because the way we look at it is this is another kind of Criterion collection thing. We want to kind of be a Criterion collection that values designers the way that the Criterion collection values directors. So a very auteur-focused approach. We want to present the designer's vision. We want to support that vision. But we don't want to impose our own vision on it. I mean, there are things that I would do differently if I was designing this game or that one.
Yeah, but it's
There
not you
are,
designing it, right?
yeah, there are, places where I might have a different opinion on what the prevalent or important factors were in that conflict. Now, we're not going to publish something we disagree with completely. That's completely ahistorical. But we try to kind of stay out of the designer's way and support them. Some designers need a bit more development than others, and we do provide that. Others need less. Like, working with Brian Train, we've done that several times. Brian's games, don't need a lot of development. We still, we do the play testing and we run through it and everything, but we don't really change Brian's games. Other designers we work with more closely and for longer periods of time to help them get the game where it's a place where we'll all be proud to put it out. So it's all going to vary depending on the designer, but in the end, the ball is kind of in the designer's court. So when we're playtesting something, for example, or developing something, we might have suggestions like, here is a problem we're seeing. Here are some ways maybe to solve it. But that choice, how to address it, is ultimately up to the designer. And sometimes they'll say, hey, that's a good idea. We'll use this idea that you guys came up with. And sometimes they'll say, you know what? I have this other idea, and let's try this. And so it really is a case-by-case basis. But like I said, our goal is to preserve and protect and support the vision of the designer.
And hold on, there's a good segue here. I get James Brazil. Do you have developers, like your own developers, look at the game too, or should the designer have done that beforehand?
Okay, so generally, Mary and I end up being the developers for most of our games. There are some exceptions, like we have Doug Miller as a developer of the Horse and Musket series. I started as a developer on that series, and the thing is, I don't have that same knowledge base that he does. He's very knowledgeable about the period and the tactics of that period. And the other thing with the Horse and Musket games is they took too much of my time. They're much bigger games than our other games, and to maintain our publishing schedule, we needed someone else to kind of be the developer,
right? Looking
at those games. And we have some times where a designer does work with the developer on the regular, and that's their developer. For example, I see Escape from Hades in your background there.
Yep.
Which is a Fred Manzo design developed by Herman Lubman. They develop each other's games.
Yeah.
But generally, Mary and I end up being the developers for the vast majority of our titles.
Okay. And you know what? Look, do you know Enrico Viglino, Callendale?
Yes.
And
I see that comment.
No, but I agree. I love that smell. I open up and it reminds me of when I was younger. Before they had photocopy machines, they had stenographs. And you would know all the kids are going to be stoners that would pick up the paper and smell the ink. You know what I mean?
So I'm glad to a degree that people have a fondness for it, but the smell is not something Mary and I want to be known for.
Yeah, well,
no. And I will say, so what it is, I don't have the details in front of me right now. I have them written down somewhere. I think on the website. It's on the website as well. It's the printing of the counters with the laser printer.
Yeah.
And the way that it
I think it burns through that cardboardy thing.
Yes, but it's also actually like the printing, the way it actually prints with the laser, or the whatever it is. It's a effect of that, and it does not. Sometimes it doesn't cure all the way. We've been told by the manufacturer of the stuff, there's no solvent in it. It's not harmful. Some people are more sensitive to it than others, but it's not a harmful thing that you should be worried about your health about, is what we have been told.
Right. I don't think anybody's worried.
Well, we do get people sometimes who are less joking about it and more upset about it, and we have taken steps with our printer Blue Panther to reduce the smell and try to eliminate it. It does continue to be a thorn in our side that we are working on and do take seriously. I would not recommend it as something for someone to get high or buzzed or whatever you kids call it these days. That's
hilarious. And it's not something I would have thought of, being a publisher. The smell of my game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, Tom. Here, I'll ask you one of my questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Recently, we've seen companies like, Victory Point Games. They sold, right?
Yeah.
So if the price is right, would Hollandspiele sell to Hasbro?
Well, so here's kind of the interesting thing about that. Because we actually were approached, not by Hasbro, but we were approached a couple times by someone wanting to kind of buy us out and make Hollandspiele, part of their brand or whatnot. But we don't own anything. Every game we publish is licensed. And the minute Hollandspiele would change ownership, all those licenses would immediately revert back to their designers. So someone who would buy Hollandspiele, they're just buying a name and a logo. They want to give us money for that? I mean, we'll take it and start a new company and relicense all the games, but I don't see that being in their interest at all.
I guess. I guess the person, if they'd want your catalog, they'd have to get in touch with every single designer, make a deal with every single designer. Yeah, it's a hell of a due diligence type thing. Let me see here. And
I'll say that, and that's important to us because, sometimes a lot of freelance designers don't think about what happens if the publisher sells.
Yeah.
To somebody else. What happens to my game and my rights to my game? And I'm a strong proponent of every designer retaining the rights to their game. Never sell the rights to your game. License it for a set period of time. Have some mechanisms for the game to revert back to you, because that is your, intellectual property, your thing that you've made, and you deserve to derive benefit from it. There are people who will sell the game to a publisher for a flat fee of sometimes like $200, and don't do that. Please don't do that, people. That's you're going to regret it.
Really? Eh?
Yeah.
Are you talking from experience? Next question, Tom.
Moving on.
Okay.
Well, no. So I've never sold the rights to my games except for the games I did for Winsome, which is like a train game publisher, and I did that knowing what I was getting into because they tend to then license the game to larger publishers. And that's done very well for me. So that was a case where I said, okay, I can do that. But other than that, every single game that I've had come out, and I've done like 50 games, all of them, I own the rights to those games.
Well, you sold, I just found out, man, or I must have heard this somewhere a long time ago and completely forgot, but you sold, or you've licensed one of your games to Rio Grande.
Yeah, so that's
Northern Pacific.
Northern Pacific, that was published by Winsome Games, which is a train game publisher back in 2013. And how they work is they just do like 200 copies of the game that they sell in these plastic clamshells, and then they license it to a larger publisher. So Chicago Express, for example, that came out from Queen Publishing like 10 years ago, that was originally a Winsome game that was licensed to Queen. And so Northern Pacific was licensed to Rio Grande and finally came out in 2018. And how that works is that the royalties are split between me and Winsome. So I'm still, even though I sold my rights to the game, I'm still getting royalties for it.
Right.
And the service they provide as far as getting my game to another publisher, so I don't have to go and try to pitch my game to someone, that was worth it for me,
Right. Yes, of course. Of course. And you had another game, Irish Gauge, published by another company.
By Capstone.
Capstone, okay.
Yeah.
Where are they from, Capstone?
Capstone's they're in Ohio.
Okay, so Rio Grande is American. I thought they were French for some reason. And Capstone is American too.
Mm-hmm.
And like having gone with a big company like Rio Grande, personally, congratulations for that. I think that's awesome. Can you buy a Ferrari now?
No.
No.
It was a little bit of extra money, and I didn't mind that. But our bread and butter is really Hollandspiele, and specifically it's Mary and I publishing the games, because even as a designer, as a freelance designer, it is very difficult to make a living unless you have some kind of unless you have some kind of big huge hit. Most game designers, it's a part-time thing.
Right.
So even those bigger publishers taking my games and putting them out there. I mean, Irish Gauge is my best-selling game by far. And I got some decent money for it, but nothing that I can live on. What I can live on is Mary and I doing Hollandspiele.
Right. Now, there's Dave Martin here. He's asking a question, and I'm going to ask the same question. I'm going to mix in my question with his question, okay? So he's loving the Sioux line. That's how you say it? Sioux line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that's a Euro game, right?
It's a train game. I don't know if I call it a Euro game exactly.
Okay, so here we go. I'm calling you out here, Tom.
Okay.
On your frequently asked question page, there's a section where you say, "Do we accept submissions?" And you say, "Sorta," and you go down point by point. Saying like, don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. You don't say that. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But one of your little bullet points is, don't send me a Euro game. I don't want a Euro game. Basically, we're not a Euro game company. Here's the Sioux line. And now you're working on another game called Field of the Cloth of Gold, which is this a war game, Tom?
No, it's more like a Euro game. It's more like the old Euro games from the late 90s, early aughties.
So is this a sellout? Is this a sellout? Are you selling out, Tom?
I'm not selling out. No, it's what it is we are kind of trying to cut off the people who, in trying to pitch a game to a publisher, they go to Board Game Geek and they click on like the list of publishers, and they start with the A's and they go down till they get to H, like submitting games that the publisher would have no interest in. So we got submissions for a lot of very standard Euro games, or because in a way, Infamous Traffic could be considered a Euro game.
Okay,
it's mean and it's nasty and random. So I don't know how Euro-y that is, but people could call that a Euro game. But it's not the standard resource conversion point salad Euro game that people think of when they think of a Euro game.
Right.
And we have people who submit us these things and they don't even know that we're print on demand. They're thinking, I'm going to get this game published and get the Spiel des Jahres or something. And no game we publish is going to get the Spiel des Jahres. Because first of all, they're not in stores in Germany, which is what, first of all, you need to do. And we're a small niche company. We do print on demand. So every time someone orders a game, we have it made and we have it sent to them. We're not doing mass print runs with those level of components that Eurogamers are thinking of. So all that combined, we just want to prevent people from wasting their time and our time. I'll say it that way.
Right. I understand.
No, I don't think I'm selling out. I like doing different kinds of games and interesting games and trying things. But Mary's looking at me like what, selling out?
No, I just said that
asking because on the site it says we don't want any Euro games, which I mean we don't. But he's like, well, you publish these Euro games, which I mean we did, but I wouldn't really call them Euro games in the same sense. No.
Train games and economics games.
Train games and economics games, and like Field of Cloth to Gold is probably closer to a Euro game, but it's also like a mean, nasty Euro game, like the sorts that got me into the hobby, the kind of games that came out like from like 1995, like to 2009. The Euro games today, they don't really resonate with me at all. Like I have they just seem like mechanics on top of mechanics.
Yeah.
Not really for any reason. And I don't dig them.
No, I understand, and but there are some Euro game designers which there's a game I always come back to called Robinson Crusoe. I don't know if you know that game by Ignacy Cevicek.
I've heard of the game, but I haven't played it.
I find it such a tough game, and there's obviously the mechanics in the game because the game needs an engine, but I mean the narrative is so incredible. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel it bringing it down to WBC, but I don't know if we're gonna play it anyways.
What you need to bring to WBC is some risotto, because I did not get any risotto.
No, I can't bring the risotto. And okay, hold on a second here. You Americans,
yeah,
you say like this is a niche product.
Mm-hmm.
It's not niche. It's niche.
Actually, both pronunciations are acceptable. They're both good English.
I'm gonna believe you, Tom. I'm gonna believe you. But it's a French word, man. It's a French word.
But we borrowed it into English and we do what we want with it.
Yeah.
Very
American.
Yeah.
I'm joking, man. I'm joking. And the sellout was just to have a laugh.
Oh, I know that. I'm kidding with you too.
All right.
Like when we met at WBC, we joked around a little bit, but I have I have a great deal of respect for you because I saw you in that competition. You placed second in that arm wrestling competition. That was great.
But we were two.
Take a win, man. Take a win.
Okay. So, all right. So, Ribbit. Now, a game like Ribbit, okay? And the designer is Mark Herman. Did you approach Mark Herman with an idea like that? Or was it over a risotto or something? How did that happen?
Okay. Well, what it was is I definitely wanted to work with Mark Herman. Mary and I definitely wanted to work with Mark Herman. And then Scott Muldoon, who did Blitzkrieg with his son Miles, we published. Mark Herman ended up being in his game group. And Scott Muldoon told him, Russell would like to work with you. And then Herman reached out to us. And Ribbit was a game that he had originally published himself some years ago. And said, would you like to start with this? We'll try this. And so we took it. And, if you've seen Herman's version of Ribbit.
No.
That he published through Amazon. He sold it through Amazon.com. It looks very much like an abstract game. And we thought, well, we can kind of do something with the art there to make it more appealing as a family game. Something that will appeal to kids and to adults alike. Is that
Will Alambre also?
That's Will Alambre also, yeah.
I've been trying to reach out to Will Alambre to do a spotlight on my show of his artwork. I can't get in touch with him. Does he hate me? What I do, man?
I don't think he hates you. I haven't talked to him about it, but I can ask him. I've known Will for a long time. I started, so I kind of grew up on the internet, and particularly I grew up on Usenet.
Okay.
And he and I were like in the same Usenet group like 20 years ago. And I'd known him for like 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
And then I saw he started doing art, and I was like, well, Mary's like, we're looking for an artist. And Mary was like, let's ask Will.
I really like his art, and it's funny. Escape from Hades, I think that's fantastic. Nailed it with the art. With the theme of the game. It's it's. I'm not gonna say it's like Ralph Bakshi, but it's not like Ralph Bakshi. Forget it. I don't even know why I said that. All right, let me see. Do I have another question?
I'm actually surprised. Like, he hasn't gotten work elsewhere. Like, he as an artist,
right?
He's only done stuff for us, and to me, that's crazy. That other companies aren't like banging down his door trying to get him to do art. I don't get it, man.
Well, I mean, it works so well with Fred Manzo's idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it works so well with Hollandspiele. It seems to like have to be Hollandspiele, and it has to be Will, and it has to be Fred type thing. It's
yeah.
I don't know. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Let me see here. You have a podcast, the Mary and Tom Show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why and when did you start that podcast?
So those two questions kind of have the same answer. Shortly after I quit my day job and we decided to go full time, we were looking at how are we going to make going full time with Hollandspiele sustainable. And part of that was finding ways to engage with people and to kind of sell people on the idea of us. So they will associate Hollandspiele with Tom and Mary, who we want them to think are nice people. Mary's a very nice person. I'm okay. We work well together there. And so we started recording the show like a week or two after I went full time. And that's basically why we do it. It's kind of like an advertisement for us to let people know what's going on with our games, talk them up a bit.
Yep.
But, I mean, if you listen to the show, and I know you have, we don't necessarily talk about games for most of the show.
Yeah, I know that.
Usually it's other things in our life, but that kind of sells the idea of us.
Yeah, I find it very charming.
Yeah, it works well for that 10 to 15 minute format. If we're doing like an hour-long show, I don't know how well we would do with that. With that, not not actually talking about games for most of the show, but that was pretty much it. The same thing. Why we started doing the videos that go up on YouTube and Facebook, where we talk about the games. And that is, these are ways for us to try to, engage with the audience for our games, continue to grow that audience.
I understand. What's this here? James says, the great people you never met, you guys. Just listen to the podcast. You know what?
Nice.
Really, I look forward. There's a couple of podcasts I look forward to. There's yours. There's another guy called something Buchanan. What's his name? Harold.
Harold.
Of course. Yeah. And the Wild Weasel. The Wild Weasel is beginning to show his claws, man. Because he said a bad word. Did you hear that? He said
I heard the bad word. I was like, whoa. Oh my goodness.
I know. I was taken aback. I'm like, what? Anyways. And he was saying, and he
needs to do more episodes.
Who? You mean Bruce?
Yeah. Because he's doing more often. Rally in the Valley. There's been a new Rally in the Valley like in a year.
I know. Who was the guy for Rally in the Valley? Was it oh man.
It's
I forget his name.
One of them was named Tom, which I approve of. I don't remember. The other one was Michael, I think. And then Guns, Dice, Butter. I want to do Guns, Dice, Butter.
It's over.
No, he says there's one coming. I met him at WBC, and he says that he's going to get started up again. And I saw him posting something that it was going to come back. So I don't know. It's been like 4 years, but I'm holding out hope.
4 years, eh?
Yeah, it was like April 2016 was the last one. But that was great. Just him talking to like the old school designers and getting their stories told. It was like a great history lesson for me coming into the hobby, coming into war games in particular. Because I came into board games in general, like I don't know, 2010 or so, and I tried to do Euro games, wasn't getting traction. Did a war game as a lark, and that is the one that sold. So I started doing more war games, but I wasn't, I didn't grow up playing war games, so that was kind of like a history lesson for me, that show. I've listened to all the episodes like 4 or 5 times.
I mean, don't they go on for like 3.5 hours or something?
Yeah, they do. But, if I'm making dinner, it takes me an hour and a half to make dinner, doing dishes after. I mean, over the course of a couple of days, I was doing an episode,
Yeah, I listen to all of them myself. So Tom, we were the podcast basically was a marketing type thing, right?
Yeah, but trying to market in an organic way, because
I understand, and I hate using that word marketing. It's just
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So who do you when you're designing a game? Are you designing for you, or are you designing with a customer in mind, like a certain person?
I mean, in a way, I'm designing for myself and assuming that there are other people who share my tastes. And so far, that's proven to be true. The great thing about our model is that generally, if the game isn't too expensive components-wise, it doesn't have too much going on as far as art costs go, it will always make a profit. It will never not make a profit. So you'll never lose money on a game. Now, if we start putting in more components in it, it gets more expensive, because like special stuff like wood bits and that, those we got to order in bulk from Germany, have them shipped over. So, I mean, that creates more financial risk. And if there's a lot of art costs, Escape from Hades, the art budget for that was several times our normal art budget. There's a lot of pieces of art in that game. And so if that hadn't done well, we could have lost money on it. But fortunately, it did do very well. So because of all that, I can publish a game without worrying about who the audience is per se, because it's going to make a profit regardless. And hopefully enough people like it that it makes, a large profit. So that's kind of our thing is that we can publish with impunity.
See, I'm not a businessman, Tom, so I don't know how that works. The question I'm trying to formulate in my head here. Let's say the cost. Do you hire a designer? Is that what it is? You hire the designer, or you hire his idea, or you rent out his idea?
So like a game designer, like
let's say I call them the dream team, Herman and Fred. Okay, I just love that package, Herman and Fred. It works. I mean, it's the odd couple. You want to watch another odd couple. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they're odd. I'm just saying. And so a game like Escape from Hades, where there was more art involved, now you're taking a beating on that in terms of money. Is that right?
Yeah. So how that works is, so first of all, as far as they pitch the game to us, we accept it to publish it. We're going to license the game from them for a period of time.
Right.
And we're going to pay them a royalty per copy sold. Okay?
Right.
So every time we sell a copy, money's going to go to them.
Yeah.
But we pay for the art and the production of the game. Now, the game production, the way it works is that when someone buys the game from us, we take the money they give us, We give money to Blue Panther. He prints the game. He ships it to them, and we keep the leftover as our profit, with part of that going to the designer as far as royalties go. Before that, we have to pay for the art for the game, which either we will pay a flat fee or we will pay a royalty depending on the artist.
Right.
Some games will require wood bits or cards. Those need to be ordered in bulk and paid for ahead of time. So those are all the costs that go into making the game. For most of our games, the costs are kept low. We keep our costs low so that even if we don't sell very many copies, we still make a profit.
Right, I understand.
So that's kind of how all that works. So because of that basic system, we can publish really obscure, weird stuff. I can design obscure, weird stuff and not worry about how well is this going to sell. Like the big game we had last year was Westphalia. That is a 6-player only.
How weird is that?
Negotiation game.
Yeah.
That would be commercial suicide for any other publisher. But because of how our system mitigates risk, I didn't need to worry about who's the audience for this. I'm just going to assume the audience is going to find it, and hopefully it'll be a big audience. And if it's not, well, I learned a lesson there.
And how did it do?
It did really well. It did really well with kind of what you could call the crossover market. People who are interested in war games, but they're not really interested in the hex and counter stuff as much. They want to engage with the history, but they want something that's more appealing to a Eurogame sensibility. So that market, I think, latched onto it pretty well.
Now, this guy here, Dave Thompson, he's like the new kid on the block. He's got a couple of games happening. I don't know any of his games, but would you suggest that he starts his own publishing company?
Would I suggest that he?
Would you say, sure, Dave, go and commit seppuku type thing? I don't know.
I mean, it really just depends on what he wants. How he wants to do it. Now, like it works for us. We make a full-time living on this, but we're also publishing, between 12 and 20 games a year. And part of what keeps us going day to day, month to month, is that publishing schedule. If we were only doing like 6 games a year, we would not be able to sustain it unless those 6 games were huge hits. And if you're looking for what's going to be a huge hit, you're going to be second guessing yourself and think about who is the audience for this, rather than doing what's going to be interesting or what you naturally are gravitating towards. So really, it depends on what that person wants to get out of it and how they want to do it.
I don't know. Maybe is there? Could you say there's more control in it when you have your own publishing company?
There absolutely is. And so the great thing about Mary and I having a company is that we own our successes and our failures alike. We're the ones that make that call. We're the ones that are responsible for it and are going to profit from it or not. And we can do what we want the way we want just because that's how we want to do it without worrying about what someone else is going to think about it. There's a... I don't know if I should tell this story. There's Mary's looking at me. Maybe I shouldn't. There's someone who has emailed us like once a year or so to say, "I've never bought your games. I'm not going to do it until you have real art." And it's like,
that's hilarious.
And it's like, where do we do that information? We like the art. We're doing what we want to do.
That's hilarious.
Should I not tell that story, Mary?
No, that's fantastic.
She's shrugging. Okay, so that's
no.
The shrug's okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Now, having your own company and basically waking up, going to sleep when you want, working 250 hours a week, because I'm sure you do that. What about deadlines, Tom? Do you put deadlines to yourself, or that doesn't matter?
I mean, it does and it doesn't. In that, if we don't get a game out in a month, if a month goes by, 2 months go by, we don't have a game out. That's going to hurt our finances. Unless the next game coming out is a big hit. So we definitely have to keep up a certain pace. But the game comes out when it's ready. Because in the end, as far as the customer end of things, no one really cares when the game comes out. They just care if it's good when it does. I mean, generally. I mean, short term, yeah, you get like, this Kickstarter took 6 more months to get to me than what I thought. But 6 years from now, are they still going to be thinking that?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Though with a lot of Kickstarter games 6 years from now, they probably won't be playing. They probably would have traded it already. I don't know. But
okay, what's this? This is David Martin. Speaking of your game art, what's the word on at all costs? What's the word on at all costs?
The word on at all costs is that that's the next box game we're going to be releasing. Mary is, as we speak, working on the layout for the rule books. And hopefully we'll be releasing it sometime this month. It's now March. I was about to say next month, but we're in March now. So sometime this month we should be having it come out. That is a game designed by Tim Taylor. It is a sequel to Tim's game To the Last Man, which Nuts Publishing published several years ago. It's World War I on the Eastern Front this time. And it's something we've been working on for a long time. We first announced that game back in 2017 when we signed it. And it just took a while to finish, to finalize the design, finish development. This is a game that's going to have some specialty wood bits with printing on them. Printed right on the wood bits. So we needed to do some tests with that and get particular types of wood bits. So it's just taken a long time. And it's a much bigger game than what we usually publish. There are a lot of special scenarios, optional rules, Chrome. It's more complex component-wise. So it's just taken a while to get that all together. But we're finally going to be releasing it, which we've been looking forward to. Getting it out on people's tables for a while. So,
Tom, I've been wanting. When I came to WBC, I saw some canvas maps, and I was like all giddy and stupid, looking at these maps. Which one should I get? And I got none. So
what? You got none?
No, because I didn't buy any. I was like, I want this one. I want that one. It's like, which one do I want?
So buy all of them. We don't mind.
Well, let's say I do want to buy all of them. Well, they're not available on your website, Tom. What do I do?
What you do is you subscribe to our newsletter, and then when they're available, you'll get a newsletter letting you know they're available. Because what we do is a couple times a year, we sell the canvas maps through our store. We do like a limited selection rather than offering it all the time. And the reason why we do that is that by having it as kind of a sale that drives sales.
I see. Okay.
Both for the canvas maps and for our games. So if we have a gap in our production schedule, things sometimes take longer, that gives us kind of a shot in the arm.
I understand. Now it's funny. Like I said, business. I don't know business. Okay, so. Mm-hmm. Did you guys study, you or Mary study business to get all these ideas happening, or were you just born with brains?
Well,
you know what I'm trying to say? It's like if I want to go into business tomorrow, just like that, I want to sell soup. How do I sell soup?
Yeah, so Mary definitely is the one that has more brains. And she's also the one that has a formal education. She went to college. I did not. I don't know. Did you take business classes, Mary, when you were in school?
Yes.
She did. She took business
okay.
classes.
Okay.
And then her mother actually had her own business, and Mary helped with that. So she has basically more of the knowledge there than I do. And then we did work for a couple of other publishers. Don't want to get into that too much, but we did work for a couple other publishers and learned how they were doing things and could see what we might want to do a little differently. So we got some practical experience with this particular business in that way.
Okay.
So, together between what Mary did and what I did, we got like 20 odd games out there into the world. So they gave us a lot of practical experience as far as what you need to do to get a game ready for publication and how maybe to sell a game. And so that together with her foundational knowledge of, running a business, I think is what has set us up for success there.
And have you ever approached any brick and mortar shops and say, hey, this is what I do, buy 100 of my games type thing?
We haven't really, and the reason for that is the print on demand method we use that reduces the risk for us so much.
Right.
Is also the most expensive and least efficient way to publish games. So it leaves us very little profit margin. Now, it's enough for us to live on because we're basically getting that whole profit margin.
Right.
So a typical game that's mass produced, the general rule is that the MSRP is going to be 5 times the production costs.
Right.
So, but then they're going to sell to a distributor for half the MSRP. And so they're going to keep whatever's left between half the MSRP and the production costs.
Right.
It's a thin slice of pie, but they're sending so many pies out there, they're getting more pie overall. Whereas we're selling fewer pies, but we get a bigger chunk of it.
Right, okay.
But at the same time, our profit margin is so low that we can't really get into distribution or retail. Because then the retailer can't sell the game for a profit unless they're selling it at higher than MSRP.
That's right.
Now, we have a couple retail stores that buy from us outside of the country. One in Canada. There was one in Japan for a while. And then Second Chance Games in the UK not only sells our games there, but they're our exclusive distributor for Europe, essentially. We don't sell to Europe anymore at all. We just sell it through Second Chance Games, which basically removes a big logistical headache and a very costly headache for us.
Right.
But
North Carolina.
And there's a store in North Carolina that buys from us as well. But so they're going to sell the game at a little bit more than MSRP in order to make a profit and make it profitable for them so they can stay in business. They're still not making a whole lot of profit, the profit they usually would make doing that. So very few stores find it in their interest to do that. We don't really find it in our interest to approach stores necessarily, generally because the kind of games we're doing, that they're niche enough and weird enough that I don't know if they're going to get a whole lot of appeal in stores. If someone goes to a retail store, if they're necessarily going to look at table bales and say, okay, I'm going to buy this now, when it's sitting there next to, I don't know, whatever they have in the stores. Northern Pacific or Irish Gauge. Here's the thing: the people who buy Irish Gauge, they're not going to buy a Hollandspiele game.
No,
some of them do. There's some overlap, but it's I thought, well, maybe when Irish Gauge gets out there, it will direct some more eyes our way, and it really didn't. Same thing. We have the game Infamous Traffic, designed by Cole Worley, who is probably most famous right now for Root. Root was a big hit.
Yeah.
But Root coming out did not move additional product for Infamous Traffic. People who are interested in Root, even if they're big on games by my favorite new designer, they're not necessarily going to come play Infamous Traffic.
Right. Tom, I got a question here by AJ Toynbee of Hexes and Soldiers. What about that question? That's a good question. Is that a loaded question?
if the answer to that question was yes, I'm smart enough not to answer it. So
because obviously obviously there's a designer and there's someone involved that it would just not be in your interest to answer that question. That's why I said I think this is a loaded question. Plus this guy AJ Toynbee, he's mean. He has tattoos and he lives in New Orleans and he's mean.
Now, yeah.
Well, I mean, is there okay? Let's make his question easier. Is there any game of yours that you've designed that you regret that you're not very happy about? It's like yeah, or is this another loaded question?
I'm proud of all my games, and generally, I think my games did what I wanted them to do. Now, sometimes I might think later on, like I could have done this differently, or I wish I had done this differently, or rethought this, or whatnot. But there's not a game that I'm not proud of that's out there. There are games that it gave me more headaches. One of them was Forex, which is a game about currency trading, and it sold very well, but so the thing with Forex is we market it as, please don't buy this game. You probably aren't going to like it. There's a very small group of people who are going to like this one. It's going to be too weird for everybody else. And a lot of those everybody else people bought it when they shouldn't have, didn't like it. And some of them accused us of lying about what the game was. And that was very stressful. So I regret that experience. Sometimes I can't even look at the game or think about it. I'm not usually very emotional about my games. People don't like my games all the time, and they're weird games. I get that. I totally get that. But that's one where, there was stress involved with it.
Okay.
But I still learned from it. The thing about, regretting something, there's not much really that in my life that I could really regret, because I'm going to learn from it almost every time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a good way of looking at life.
Other than the time I ran for office, I regret doing that.
Did you really run for office?
Yeah, I ran for mayor in my hometown. It was a special election because the previous mayor had died. There were 12 of us running, and I placed 6 out of 12. That's not terrible. The guy who won got like 98% of the vote. The rest of us were going to get anything. We were all either, a lot of them were kind of nutty, and I was doing it kind of as a joke. And I thought, well, this will be a fun lark. I'm going to go run for mayor in a fuzzy yellow bathrobe, and which I did. And I'm going to explain municipal finance through the metaphor of the arcade game Burger Time, which I did.
And you came in 6th.
I came in 6th, but part of it, part of it though is at the time I was a city employee, and before I ran, I had checked, can I run for mayor as a city employee? And they're like, yeah, sure, nothing's stopping you from doing that. After I was in the race, so after I was already on the ballot, before, like 4 or 6 weeks before the voting happens, actually campaigning, they said, oh, there's this rule we didn't look up before, and you can't run for mayor and be a city employee, so no job for you for the next 6 weeks.
Look at that.
So for 6 weeks, I was unemployed. And it was very depressing.
Yeah.
And very hard financially. So, like, I regret doing that. But not much else in my life I regret, especially publishing, designing or publishing a game.
That's good, because you're too smart and too human to be a politician. So, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to get elected. I mean, there's no way I was going to get elected. And,
well,
and if I did, I certainly would try my best. But yeah.
Nathaniel Robinson has a question. This Guilty Land, was there stress involved in publishing that game?
I mean, yeah, because so to do this Guilty Land, I first of all needed to kind of steep myself in that period and the rhetoric of that period. And that is really bleak and depressing stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so spending a year and a half of my life living in that period and then trying to do this, I'm going to say it is the most ambitious game I've done. It was definitely the one I'm proudest of having done it, but it was definitely, there are a lot of ways I could have screwed that up and got it wrong.
Oh, man.
And I had to be very thoughtful. I had to do a lot of work on it and be very diligent about it. And I need to be very careful also, not just about how I was designing the game, but about how Mary and I were presenting that game to the public, how we were talking about the game, because we didn't want anyone else to control the narrative of what the game was. To impose that it was this thing or that thing that it wasn't. So it was very important for us to communicate very clearly what the game was, how we were approaching it, so that we would be unimpeachable, essentially. And it worked out for us. It did very well, and it's been very well received. There were some people who didn't like the idea of the game to begin with, or who were.
But why tackle such a difficult subject? I mean, what's next? You know what I'm saying?
Why tackle it?
I mean, so God, you gave yourself a headache to begin with. It's like, what was it? You and Mary were sitting around and you said, "Well, Mary, let's see if we can commit suicide or something like that."
Well,
you know what I'm trying to say, Tom.
I know what you're trying to say.
It's a hell of a subject, man.
And I resisted that. Like, the idea occurred to me, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. That is too much work. That is playing with fire. But I kept coming back to it. I kept being drawn to it. I kept being compelled by it. And felt it was just something that I could do that was... I don't want to say it was important, because that sounds really pretentious, but that I could do more than what I have been doing with games. And I could do a game that could, for the people who approach it in the spirit in which it is offered, find it useful or educational, or get something out of it where they can reflect on the situation being presented. Because, essentially, it's a game about the politics of slavery and not the lived experience of it, and about how poisonous compromise and the well-meaning center can be on a moral issue. So providing a game that models that models the kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
The kind of
the radicalization and the how very divided things become, and the complicity of the center to give space for someone to reflect on what is going on around them today, and where do they stand or not stand, and are they in the center and trying to find some compromise that shouldn't exist on a moral issue. So it's hopefully useful to people who are going to want to approach it that way, and people who just want to have a fun time, maybe play a different game. It's a fun game, but it's heavy.
It's very heavy. Look, for me, because I personalize it, I don't know in what circumstance I would play like Freedom or this Guilty Land, other than probably trying to teach my children, look, man, there was a period not long ago.
Mhm.
A period. Anyways, I mean, there was a time not long ago where this garbage, this I don't want to say shit, but this is what was happening back then to these people, and that would be the only way I think I could play that game because it's
That's
so dark.
perfectly valid.
It's so dark, man.
Yeah, that's perfectly valid. And one reason why uh, the game is soloable in a play both sides style, there's no hidden information in the game at all. It's a card-driven game with completely open hands, and part of that is if someone wants to just play both sides to experience that model, without having to try to find someone else to play the game with, they can do that. And if someone doesn't want to do that, that is fine. That's completely valid. It is not for everybody. One thing that's going to be interesting is that there's a sort of sequel to the game that's coming out later this year about voting rights in America, just called The Vote. And so it's taking some of the mechanical foundations of that and applying it to a different story that arguably has a happy ending. Now, there's still, right now, there are still people who might not get to vote, and that's something that needs to be addressed and dealt with. It's an ongoing struggle. But that basic story of women's suffrage,
Right.
it has, in a way, a sort of happy ending and a victory to achieve. Whereas This Guilty Land, the whole point of it was that neither side could really win in the arena of politics. And that's inherently depressing. So it was trying to have a less depressing subject, and we'll see how it does with that later this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, good luck, Tom. I mean, I don't have the words. Like, let's say I was a designer, I don't think I have the words to create a game like that. Everything I say, everything I think I'm going to say is just going to come out wrong. And that's not what I mean. And then as soon as you say that's not what I mean, you just shot yourself in the foot. And then it's like, oh, my God. I'd stick with
that was kind of the stress I had with doing the game.
And how long did it take you to get over that darkness of that game, man?
Oh, like to stop being depressed about it. And
yeah.
I mean, it was after it had been published, but it took me a few months to get myself back in kind of a normal headspace. And I said to myself, you know what? I've done this thing. I'm very proud of it. It's the best thing that I've done so far. People seem to really appreciate it in the spirit in which it is offered. I'm going to kind of just rest on my laurels a little bit here and do some simple hex encounter stuff, some simple, quote unquote, normal war games for a while. Not do anything ambitious anytime soon. And now I'm working on a game about voting rights. So I just dragged myself back into it.
It's like watching The Exorcist. It stays with you for a long time. It stays, and it just stays and stays and stays. Oh my God! And you've got you as a publisher, Uva as a publisher. You know what? These are subjects to be out in the open. It's like, and I understand that, but I don't have the courage. I don't have the courage to do something like that. And you know what? Kudos to you, and kudos to Uva for doing stuff like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I think David told me he's doing a game on the suffragettes.
Is he?
Say, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, well. That's okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. This is the year for it. This is the 100th anniversary of in America of women getting the right to vote. This year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Tom. Well, Tom, I don't have another question. I didn't think we were going to go on this long, but it was very interesting near the end, especially with my God, I just forgot the game that we were talking
Land
about.
and
Yeah,
the boat. Yeah.
and I remember when that first came out, I was like, "Eee!" And I just
I was we were worried that there might be a lot of negative attention or a backlash. And that's why we were trying to be very, very careful about how we talked about the game, what we said about it. And generally, there was some backlash, some of it kind of I would say in bad faith. But generally, either people say, you know what, that's not for me, I'm staying away from it, or they enjoyed it. So it's been a very positive reception to it. Not a whole lot of we lost some customers probably just by doing the game,
well,
but not too many.
I wouldn't ditch a company because they did a game I didn't like. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I have heard from people who are not going to be customers because we did the game, and that is their prerogative. That's fine.
I guess, and
but I think we gained more customers. We gained a lot more customers than the very, very few that we lost. So I'm
okay. So here's my last question, Tom, and and I appreciate the time you took do this interview. And how do you promote a game like that?
Like this Guilty Land in particular?
Yeah.
Very, very carefully. We just try to be very sober and serious about it. We were definitely helped by I got to do an interview on a podcast about it where I could just someone said, "Whoa, what is this? What is this about?" I'm like, "Listen to this," and they could see where we're coming from. We were taking it seriously. We were taking it soberly. We were preemptively addressing any concerns people might have because we thought about it before we did it. You hear about games where maybe they weren't thought through as much that are on controversial topics, and they cause a big uproar sometimes. So it was thinking, okay, we need to address these things ahead of time. We can't be real. If you see my videos, I'm a little goofy sometimes.
No, I know that. I know that.
And I cannot be goofy when promoting that kind of game.
No.
And so it was just trying to be sincere, trying to be serious, and trying to answer the questions honestly and quickly. And we're helped by the fact that we do this full time. So if there's a question on the internet, it doesn't sit there for hours where people can then take it and it can snowball, on Twitter or whatever into some kind of brouhaha. Because I can nip it in the bud right away and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing, and it's okay if you don't want it or don't like it. So I mean, really, it was just that. It was just getting that message out repeatedly, what the game was, how seriously we were taking it, what the game wasn't, and it seemed to work out okay for us. But we also had the benefit of the fact that we have a fan base, and essentially, I mean, we don't do banner ads, for example. We don't do any kind of real traditional advertising. It's all word of mouth. People being excited about our stuff and then telling their friends and then telling their friends. So it was just trying to get the message out the best way we could and trying to address any concerns before they popped up.
I mean, I have thousands more questions, but I on a subject like that and approaching certain subjects that to be gamified, and what subjects can be gamified and what subjects can't be gamified or should not be gamified.
Yeah, well, it really just depends on. It depends a lot on the approach.
Oh, 100%.
And on having a point of view on it and having a clear point of view on it. If someone just does a game on a controversial topic and says, well, the game lets you draw your own conclusion, man, and I'm just having this historical thing without having any kind of point of view on it. I don't think that's necessarily responsible for those topics. You should be making an argument with the game, and that argument should hopefully be a valid, justifiable argument. And I think that's a big part of it, in thinking through what those mechanics that you have mean. What are the mechanics? There might be what you're saying and what the mechanics are saying. They might be saying different things. You can't have that. You have to really think about what is the story my game is telling by itself. And sometimes people don't think that through. I'm trying not to get into an example where I'm going to be bad mouthing someone else's game, but but it's definitely something that we thought and talked a lot about leading up to that, and we definitely it was
I can't even imagine. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to stress myself out more in life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why this year we're doing dinosaur table battles, right? So there's no controversy there.
No, and it's great, and you got to thank Mary for that, because she, in all the podcasts, she was always pushing, come on, and you know what? I think it's going to do very well.
I hope so.
Oh, I think it's going to do very well.
My big worry about it, really, two big worries. One big worry is that it does super, super well, and then I have to do more dinosaur games.
Yes!
Okay. And then the second worry is because, it's dinosaur table battles, but it's still table battles. So table battles is like our flagship title. It is my most popular Hollandspiele game. But there's parts of table battles that irritate people who aren't digging it, right? Like the mandatory reactions really irritate certain people. So table battles isn't a game for them. The thing is, all our games are kind of pitched towards a niche audience, and if Dinosaur Table Battles goes really big and attracts people who wouldn't normally get our games, what are they going to think of those mandatory reactions?
It's part of the mechanics. It's part of the game.
I know, but there are people who really hate, I have to do this thing. And it's like, well, then don't set yourself up to have to do that. That's controlling the tempo is key to the whole system. So I worry about it getting big, not mainstream, but bigger than what we're used to, because you get more people who might not dig it, and then those people are going to give the game, a bad rating or whatever. And the ratings on BGG, they don't matter. They really don't matter. But at the same time, so like 4X, that I was talking about earlier, where a bunch of people bought it who maybe shouldn't have bought it, right? So the thing with our games is that they sell a lot when they start, and then as time goes on, each quarter they sell a little bit less. Sometimes they pick up again, but we have a steady stream of income dating from when we first release it as it continues. And 4X got a lot of negative feedback from people who weren't the audience for the game, right? And that didn't help keep those sales building the way we wanted. So I want to make sure Dinosaur Table Battles finds the audience.
Oh man, I can't believe that. I can't believe that happens. I mean, it's just a game. It's just a game in your catalog. Either you buy it or you don't buy it. That's it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to buy Escape from Hades because you put out Dinosaur.
But here's what it is that we live on word of mouth, right? We live on people telling people about our games. So we want people who like the games. We're trying to aim at people who are going to like the games so that they tell people who will also like the games. And there's more people out there saying they don't like the game. People might not look deeper to find out if they don't like the game or not, if that makes sense. So that's the only consideration with that is
Oh my god.
how,
Why did I do that?
making sure we match the game to the audience. I spent a lot of time on Twitter and Board Game Geek telling people not to buy this game or that one because it's not the right game for them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want people to look at Dinosaur Table Battles, say, "Oh, there are dinosaurs in here," and think it's going to be, I don't know, whatever dinosaur. There's a bunch of dinosaur games out there now
With miniatures and stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of trying to manage those expectations and attract the audience. That's going to make this hopefully our best-selling game. I think what we're aiming for, Mary.
Yes, and Mary's expectation is that there will be more
There will be more.
dinosaur.
Regardless of how it sells, there'll be more.
I want dinosaur games.
I know you want dinosaur games. I'm working on it.
And Tom, your dinosaur games, your mechanics, like you're going to be using the same table battle mechanics, obviously. And there's a mechanic I forget as you progress in the original table battles. There the scenarios that come with the game. You have people in the back. You have another formation in the back. What do you call that? I keep forgetting.
A reserve?
A reserve or whatever. Yeah. So how's that going to work with dinosaurs? What, you can have the T-Rex in front, and what are you going to have, a reserve of velociraptors in the back type thing?
Okay, so Dinosaur Table Battles is a standalone game because it takes some of the foundations of table battles, but it does alter them to make a different experience. So there are no reserves, right? There are 15 different kinds of dinosaurs, and players generally are going to draft their There's a introductory scenario, but after that, you're going to get a hand of dinosaur cards, pick what dinosaur you want, pass it to your opponent. They're going to pick one, pass it back to you. So you draft a team of dinosaurs, right? So with 15 different dinosaurs existing in combinations of between 2 to 4 dinosaurs on a side, there are about 9 million different games different matches you can play in Dinosaur Table Battles, which are kind of balanced by the players in a way because each dinosaur has special abilities that break the rules in a different way, and they each have different actions and reactions and die numbers they can accept, and so you have to kind of balance those things and create synergies between these dinosaurs so they can help each other out. And so you're going to draft that team of dinosaurs, and then you're fighting the other side, and you are choosing what target you want, but you're triggering reactions and all that fun stuff. So there's no reserves. I don't have that, but you have attacks, and then you have absorb, block, and counter, like the 3 basic reactions, and then you have dinosaurs with special abilities to do crazy different things, like the Velociraptors. Their special ability is called Thief. So they can steal hit points, markers from the other side. So instead of, I attack you and do 2 hits and you lose 2 markers, they attack you, do 2 hits, your 2 markers come over to my side. So that's their special ability that breaks the rules in that way. The Utah Raptor, which is closer to the Velociraptor you see like in Jurassic Park, they have dice that can act as wild dice for other people on their team, other dinosaurs on their team. So all of them have special abilities that are kind of interacting with each other, and that's kind of essentially it. I mean, there's some definite other differences, but it's basically trying to have a simple, streamlined version of Table Battles that can work for a non-historical context. Because the trick with Table Battles, of course, is that each scenario is designed to evoke or follow the history and the historical relationships between these units. And I don't have that. I don't have an order of battle for the Battle of the Tar Pits or whatever.
Are they only land dinosaurs, or are you going to have some sea dinosaurs like the Ichthyosaurus?
Well, I have so they're mostly land dinosaurs, but
Right.
I have the Spinosaurus, which or Spinosaurus, which may have been amphibious. So it may have been in the water, it may have been on land. There's discussions there. They may have eaten fish, or they may have eaten other dinosaurs. There's still debate going on about that. Also, there's a Pteranodon, which is not a dinosaur, because pterosaurs are not dinosaurs. But I had to have a Pteranodon in there, so I put him in there. I got a Stygimoloch in there, which isn't actually a dinosaur. I mean, Stygimoloch, they pretty much figured out it's a baby Pachycephalosaurus, and isn't really its own dinosaur. But you know what? I like Stygimoloch. He can go into my game. And on the card it says he's probably not real, but have fun with him.
It's your game. It's your game. And here's my last question. My last question, Tom. Really sorry.
Hey, it's early, man. I'm fine.
Solo mode for that game.
So the solo mode is you play both sides yourself, alternating each side like you do like in a
just like
war
table
game.
battles. Just like table battles.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing, and this thing doesn't get me in trouble. I don't like dedicated solitaire modes for 2-player games or 3+ player games. I don't like bots and flowcharts.
Okay.
I hate them. They're anathema to me, right? So people ask me a lot of times, like, are you gonna have a solo bot for this game, or can you put bots for Westphalia? No, Westphalia doesn't have. No, there won't be bots. Can I have a bot for supply lines someplace? Like, there's no hidden information. You can play that solitaire. You just play both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making a flowchart. It's not designed for that, man. And to me, it's crazy. You have these games where, I mean, I've heard about people playing the coin games where they just use the flowcharts. They have 4 AI players, and they just kind of implement it and don't make any decisions themselves as a player. They just watch these 4 flowcharts play against each other. That's nuts to me. I don't get it, man.
Anyways, Tom, stick around. I'm gonna do the outro, and thanks people for listening and dealing with me. Anyways, Tom, thank you very much. Mary, thanks a lot in the background.
Dan says thanks a lot in the background to you. Thank you for.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, dinosaurs.
Okay, thanks people. Tom, stick around.